Evolve Beyond Borders is proud to introduce Chris Kirby, Payroll Transformation Leader at Lace Partners. Chris is a global change agent in payroll and has over 2 decades of experience in senior operational and consultant roles. He also has worked on several HR transformation programs. Let's welcome Chris as he shares his insights on navigating the evolving landscape of global payroll.
Yeah, thank you very much, and welcome everybody to the Evolve Beyond Borders event. I'm very happy to be presenting today. My name is Chris Kirby. I head up the payroll practice at Lace Partners. I've operated payroll on a global scale in multiple different roles, and continue to support companies with Lace Partners in payroll and HR transformation programs. So today I'm going to be talking about navigating the evolving landscape of global payroll. This is an incredibly complex subject, as I'm sure most of you will appreciate, and hopefully some of the conversation today will help to set the scene and maybe help you resolve and set you on the journey to resolving some of the challenges that this poses. So to begin with, 2022, what a year. Just when it started to look like normality was on the horizon, we saw inflation start to impact both employees and employers, and then the largest armed conflict that Europe's seen in 75 years start to hit economies around the world. It certainly feels at the moment, I think it's fair to say, like uncertainty is the only certainty, and clearly from a payroll perspective, that poses a significant set of challenges. I think looking at the future of work, I think the future of work is already here. The impact on payroll is clearly going to evolve over time, and is an evolving picture as we speak. I think hybrid working and fully remote working is a huge trend, and something that's clearly right at the top of the agenda for many employees and employers at the moment. It's often pointed at the pandemic, but I think in reality it was already here. I think the pandemic just accelerated the momentum behind it. As humans, we've seen the majority of what we do gradually shift to being served from home. And to be fair, that's technology led across the board in most cases, from takeaway food to shopping, even now exercising, which can be done in front of a TV with hundreds of other people now. People just question why they need to do anything from anywhere other than their own home, and it's natural that's the challenge now around their work. I think our audience is increasingly global. I think beyond borders is a great term for where we are and where we're going. Organizations, teams, employee bases, and customers are frustrated when their location impacts anything now. And again, it's just natural it is the challenge of payroll and what we do. I think jobs, the view of jobs has changed. Previously, I think if we go back 30 years, it was far more common for job selection to be seen as a life decision. Things like benefits were more rewarding and encouraged long service. And if you wanted a new job, you'd have to actively visit an agency or look at adverts. Most of us nowadays, new jobs are seen as part of our 5-year plan. You don't even need to look for a job, and you have adverts and LinkedIn suggestions daily. Essentially, I think it's fair to say career has been decoupled from a company, and employees are looking more at their development from a personal angle. This is where progress and development comes in, particularly with Gen Z. I think we're seeing an increased hunger for progression, education, and development. But with that also comes an expectation that this will be rewarded with progression at work and quickly. This adds a significant new balancing act for companies who want to keep their best people and need to give them the opportunity and variety they now crave. Through all of this, people analytics is becoming a significant player and playing an increasingly important role. The uncertain world that I've already touched on, it's also accelerated this focus, and organizations operating globally need a vast amount of data to inform their decision making. As always, new technology in the modern world is leading the direction of travel. I think while for people, functions, and payroll, we can often be some way behind the curve in adopting the latest technology. Blockchain, as an example, has the potential to revolutionize how employees engage with employers. It's important to decouple blockchain from cryptocurrency here, as they aren't the same thing, but blockchain carries with it the possibility of no longer needing vast systems hosted internally or by suppliers, and essentially let people own their own data and grant their employer access. We're some way off of it at the moment, but I think it's certainly a distinct possibility that we'll be discussing it in Evolve Beyond Borders 2032. So I've touched a little bit on employee expectations already, but fundamentally, the expectations of our workforce are changing. There's so much I could go into detail about, but I can summarize it as a shift to here and now. In our lives, almost everything is available when we need it. Where it isn't, it gets challenged, or more often than not, it is possible to be given here and now. In addition to this, our employees are looking more at how they can be supported by their employer rather than just be served by transactional processes. With everything now on demand for payroll, this is where the concept of pay on demand comes from. When you look at the question here around why can't I be paid for what I've worked, it's actually a tough one to argue if technical and procedural barriers are removed from the equation. In the vein of looking at more from their employers, the obvious one here from payroll perspective is financial well-being. However, I find this solely being attributed to pay on demand still. And I think while that's a good start, and while pay on demand is something that employers should be looking to offer employees now, it's only one solution in a far bigger landscape. Financial well-being should be about putting the person first and looking at what they need. I also think financial coaching and education are huge areas for focus here, particularly as it isn't something commonly taught in schools. Another angle is access to the most suitable and best products when it comes to finance. Looking at our employees as people and understanding what their requirements are is a key part of recognizing what financial well-being should and could serve. I think fundamentally it may be time for companies to move away from the age-old statement of we cannot give financial advice to looking at how they can, whether it's through hiring qualified staff, gaining certifications at a company level, or partnering with third parties. It just feels strange to me that companies feel comfortable supporting employees thoroughly when it comes to mental health, but their financial well-being is seen as something that they should leave alone or are hesitant to support, despite both of them carrying significant responsibility. Fundamentally, I think there's a shift to people wanting to be seen, treated, and engaged as people rather than employees. So what does a lot of this mean for payroll? I think fundamentally the landscape around an employee's remuneration is becoming more complex, whether it's through location challenges, policies which are being grandfathered as part of mergers and acquisitions, for example, or simply balancing the needs of workforce spanning incredibly different generations. There's a new set of skills that will be required into the future, at least an enhancement on what's there today. I think mindset's a core enabler of all of this. The mix of cultures in global teams means we need to be adaptable to new ways of thinking and working. And the new mindset, or the future mindset, is of proactivity and improvement focus, both in terms of processes and in supporting employees. Payroll teams will be more outwardly facing. I think there'll be an enhancement of focus on engagement and stakeholder management as payroll seek to support businesses and employees more. There'll be a requirement to build and maintain mechanisms to gather and track suggestions or feedback from stakeholders. These things will become commonplace. And of course, as I've already touched on, people analytics, data and analytics is a core skill that will be required into the future of payroll teams. I think payroll's always been heavily reliant on data. So as a core skill, it isn't new. However, there's an adaptation in progress where the data needs to be stronger and repurposed to support broader strategic analytics. This will bring new and broader skills into the payroll team. I think a lot of companies and organizations are already looking at optimization. And this is something that will be a key enabler moving into the future. Really, it's about taking uncertainty away from the basics. With the world in such an uncertain place, it's fundamentally important to be strong enough to navigate the ever-changing world with your core offering, both in technology and people. The technology does need to do more. This will enable payroll teams to focus on their broader remit. We can no longer have payroll teams focusing on filling gaps and limitations on systems and offering those transactional level processes that take up so much time of so many companies today. I think the operating model will evolve, and it needs to evolve. With this increased exposure that we'll see with payroll teams and the broader remit that that brings, it will be more important than ever, to ensure the operating model and structures in place are robust enough to provide the support the business need. We continue to work with clients at Lace who are working on a numbers basis. They have X number of people, and that's enough to do the job, but without the structure and clarity around the roles, either now or into the future, that's required to really set them up for success. The transactional element of payroll teams should diminish over time and will be replaced with this change and improvement focus, as well as outwardly supporting the business. This cannot be achieved if you aren't tracking the reduction of transactional element and don't have roles focused on governance and improvement. There has to be space for engagement and creativity. This is something that can be seen as foreign to a lot of payroll teams still. It's a big one though, because you can't just say you want your teams to do all of this if they're still having to operate in the same way. There needs to be specific roles and capacity given for teams to engage and be creative, which will also breed their buy-in. And I think it's also fair to say that partners will be called upon and are being called upon to offer a product and a service. I think it's linked to some of the previous points, but repurposing your own resources to serve the modern workforce means shifting as much transactional activity away from them as possible. This is both process and service based. So providers are being called upon to offer not only better and robust technology, but to support businesses and play an active role in their service. Lastly here, I think we look at time and attendance. This is a truly evolving picture. The changing global landscape impacts time and attendance as much as it does anything else within the payroll landscape. Businesses need to know where people are and the requirements of time and attendance policies and calculations, which are becoming far more complex as the global landscape continues to change. When it comes to the technology, I think it's important to remember that in many businesses, the recording of employees' time can be the only interaction they ever have with payroll. It's therefore surprising that the user experience of many time and attendance tools is either not up to standard or is at the very least not in keeping with the broader experience they encounter with tools in the people and payroll ecosystem. Time and attendance capability will have to develop significantly, and we'll start to see integrated solutions with the leading providers capable of handling more complexity rather than having to offer separate solutions which need to interface to payroll systems. I think broadly in this space, time and attendance, which has been a hot potato in my experience between business hubs, between HR teams and payroll teams, I think it's becoming more sensible and obvious almost for that to be bolted far closer to the payroll team. And this expands the remit in many cases where it's been managed locally at business level or in broader HR and people teams. So with all of that said, maybe it's time that payroll rebranded. Human resources has most recently become the people function in many organizations. This really highlights that the employees are people ahead of them being resources, and is in keeping with a lot of the themes I've spoken about today, and that I think we'll continue to see evolve over the immediate future of HR and payroll. So the term payroll originates from the 1700s, and it literally refers to a roll of payments. And I think it's fair to say, even now, without all of the additional remit that we've been speaking about today and the potential future role of a payroll team, payroll don't really just offer a role of payments. Our responsibility has expanded significantly, certainly since the 1700s, and I'd say even more so over the last decade. So as I said, is it time for payroll to be rebranded to reflect this broader role? I've struggled with what that term may be. I'm not the most creative of people in that space. Maybe something along the lines of employment, where HR and people teams take care of the person, payroll take care of the employment side of things. I don't know. I'd be really interested to hear your views, and please do feel free to share them as part of this event, and also to contact me after the event with any suggestions. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening today. I'd be really interested to hear some of your views on whether payroll should be rebranded and what that rebranding may be. I really hope you're enjoying the Evolve Beyond Borders event and continue to enjoy it. Hopefully I'll hear from some of you shortly.